So by any chance, do you still have a yo-yo?
I do. In fact, I bought a rather expensive one while I was on vacation last year, and I haven't opened it yet. There is in downtown Disney, there is a yo-yo store.
And you go in. So if you were on campus of Auburn University in 1993 to 95, you were seeing just one guy with a yo-yo walking around the Haley Center or somewhere.
Yeah, that was me.
And he was a cool kid from Birmingham, Alabama.
Man, that's a long time ago.
This guy right here.
That's a long time ago.
Yo, Strick City coming live. Yo.
Yeah.
All right, so check this out. I am DJ Strick, and we got an incredible show for you today. One of my friends, I've been bringing a whole lot of people that I know, right? Just people that I know. So I got a friend of mine that I've known for, 30 plus years. Met him on the plains of Auburn University, but he just so happens to have grown up in Birmingham, Alabama. So we can get all the details of who he is. He's back in the city doing some major things and wants to help. He's a pastor that wants to help other pastors. So we're gonna run down some of the things that he's done in the past, who he is, and what he's doing currently to help pastors like you. Or if you know a pastor, it could be somebody that you know, right? None other than Pastor DJ Manuel. I have him right here. What's up, man?
Good to see you, man.
Dude, first of all, I really like this shirt.
Thank you very much. I like it too.
So I went to Hawaii not too long ago, and I was looking for shirts just like that, but short sleeve. Of course, you got to have them warm, but real light, real light, colorful shirts. That's right down my alley, man.
Yes, sir. In fact, I was wearing a short sleeve one earlier today.
So I say that, and I'm in my traditional black. I don't know why I just wear black a lot. So it works. It does work. It does work. It slims me down.
Oh my goodness! I need to work. Hey, I need to work on that, man. You know.
Hey, man. We hadn't had a chance to talk in a while. I did have an opportunity to come to your installation that you had at your church, Lilly Baptist Church, right over in Tarrant. How is that going?
Wow, it has been a whirlwind.
Okay.
And thank you so much for being there. So many people were surprised when they came to the installation and they saw so many other pastors and church leaders there, because the church really didn't know anything about me.
Okay.
So to have you and have others there, one of the deacons walked away and said, you know what, I've never seen that many ministers in this church before at one time.
Wow.
And so it gave a lot of credibility to what the changes I wanted to make. And so the church is growing, it's thriving. We're getting a good foundation in how we do things. And a lot of preaching, a lot of teaching, a lot of leadership development, but it's working out very well. And I think people's eyes are open to the possibilities of what our church could be.
I like that. That sounds really cool, man. I'm excited about the opportunity that you have, especially being a Birmingham boy. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like, that's a big deal. So we're finna draw a line in the sand right now. Some people may or may not like this. But what high school did you go to?
I went to Ramsey.
No way.
I did. I graduated from Ramsey.
I should have known. There was a bunch of people at Auburn during that time at Ramsey.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Listen, I was, of course I'm from Opelika, so I didn't know how smart you guys was.
Oh my goodness, we're still trying to figure out how smart we are.
No, man, I'm telling you, there were so many kids from Ramsey that, of course, I didn't have an idea of what high schools were, but I've been here long enough to know that if you were at Ramsey at that time, like, that was a really big deal.
Yeah, it really was. It laid a great foundation and really prepared us for college, because even 35 years ago, you could do dual enrollment while you were at Ramsey.
Are you for real?
Yeah, there were other folks in the school who took classes at UAB during the afternoon. So advanced placement classes, things like that. So it was all about getting you prepared for college.
Man, that's really cool. Like I said, I did not know how smart everybody was. I knew that Auburn was too much for me, but you guys were knocking it out the park.
I didn't knock it out of the park. It took me a while to get my legs under me, but I'm glad I was able to finish, business school and also religious studies.
Yeah.
So it helped prepare me for what I'm doing now in ministry.
Man, that's awesome. Like, we all really do try to stay together, Ministries in Actions, trying our best, that first initial group to kind of do some things. There's a couple of chats that go on, text chat that go on, and happy birthdays and stuff like that. But, I always try to, get the group together again.
Yeah.
We just got to do it, man. We just got to get together. Everybody is well into their 50s.
Woo.
So we need to do that.
Yeah, but I think one of the things that's very positive is that so many of us have been either closely tied to ministry or are in ministry now, and have found other ways to be successful as well. So we're a busy bunch.
Very busy. I'll take that. But there's still, it's nothing like people that know you when you were a kid, college student. Those people know and like you for who you are at your core.
Yes.
Not who you are professionally.
True.
Very
true.
But so when people, like earlier today when you called me Steve, what? People that know me from that time call me that. Everybody else is like Strick,
Listen, and you called me Demikia.
Yeah.
And most folks don't know
that.
They don't
right?
know it. They don't know it.
So it's something to me that I think is extremely special when you have that history with somebody and you know them authentically.
Yes.
And then you're able to have, listen, some of my best friends in the world today, I've known from college.
Same for me. Just close to them. And you can't help but be your authentic self when you're a broke college student and we're all trying to figure out new ramen noodle recipes,
So yeah, that's true. I never ate Roman noodles.
Oh man,
I never had to go down that route.
You missed it.
I did miss it. I was going to Dairy Queen's for the $1 Blitz burger.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I had so many of them $1 Blitz burgers, man. It didn't make good sense. It really didn't. It really didn't. But that being said, it's cool to reminisce about those times, and we got so many people that we could probably shout out and talk about, you and your family and all of that. But now you are in Birmingham at a church, but before you got there, around the pandemic time, you were telling me you actually started some curriculum for pastors.
Yes. So when we were dealing during the time of the pandemic, I had already been pastoring in Tuskegee.
Right.
So I was at Greater Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in Tuskegee, and I had been at the church 25 years before I left. But I was the pastor.
25 years?
Well, I was pastor for 16.
Okay.
But I was there 25 years. I did the youth ministry and then assistant pastor, then pastor. But during that time, I was getting involved in other church organizations. I was getting involved with the Ministers' Council for the county. I was getting involved in different district associations, and I was teaching workshops.
Okay.
Sometimes those workshops would be on evangelism, or the workshops would be on leadership, just talking about how do you lead like Jesus.
Right.
I did some workshops on, trying to get back on focus with your mission in the church, and just trying to help small churches become a little more stable.
Okay.
With the pandemic, so many of our churches got exposed. And when they did, they found out how far off the mark they were.
I got it.
We as pastors made the mistake of thinking that when people showed up on Sunday, we were pastoring.
Right.
We were really just preaching.
Right.
The pastoring happens when you engage with people. It happens when you're talking to people. And when the pandemic happened, there were pastors who didn't know how to even get in touch with their members.
No.
They didn't know where their members were. They didn't know what was going on with their folks because they just weren't connected.
Right.
And so with engagement being kind of the new measuring stick, I've been talking with pastors about ways they can do that, because along with pastoring, I have a website design business, Emmanuel Business Solutions. So I'm always talking to pastors about how to use the technology to stay connected, how to use email marketing, how to use a mass text. I mean, that's one of the things you helped me with, because now on Sunday mornings, after I had the conversation with you a couple of years ago, 240 pastors get a text message from me every Sunday morning where I'm praying for them.
That's awesome.
And so I bring that to the table and try to help these pastors see ways that they can stay connected with their folks. 240 get the email, and another 240 get the text message, another 170 get the email.
Wow.
So there are different pastors from different places. They're all different denominations, but that text message goes out every Sunday morning at 6 a.m.
Man, that's awesome.
Yeah. But again, doing these workshops, going in, helping churches, basically moving into church consulting. And so looking at myself as a small church coach, where I can just come alongside a church and say, let's look at what you've got going on. Let's grade your church. Let's see where you are. Let's talk about your generosity. Let's talk about goal setting. Let's bring some of that business stuff that I learned in college and say, let's do a SWOT analysis. Look at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Let's talk about goals and strategies and objectives and all of those things to try to help you identify the key areas you need to focus on.
Right.
So coming alongside a pastor, coming alongside a church and that church's leadership, and just kind of talking them through that process and literally teaching them those skills has just been very rewarding.
So what is your ideal church or pastor to work with?
I'm looking at pastors of churches that are maybe 250 members or less. Sometimes they may be in rural settings, or they may be small churches in an urban setting, but they're pastors who may feel as if they're stuck, may feel as if their people aren't getting it. They may feel that they are not taking advantages of the opportunities around them. And so coming in and saying, well, Pastor, let me help you with your preaching a little bit, because I've written some books on preaching. So let's talk about your preaching and talk about some methods and techniques to help you communicate better.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, let me also take a look at, let's talk about what you're doing financially. Let's talk about accountability. Let's talk about whether or not you need to bring in an accountant who can help you get things in order so that you can be more efficient with what you have. How do you create a culture of generosity? Okay, you don't know how to really communicate with this prevailing generation. You don't know how to use the technology. Let me help you develop that media ministry, that social media ministry that will help you to engage with this generation and meet them where they are.
Right.
Because everybody doesn't want a handshake, and a lot of our young people don't even want a phone call. They prefer to see something online or receive a text message. So how do you really reach them? It's a matter of just kind of assessing, here's where you are, here's where you want to be. What are the steps that are going to help you get there?
I hear all of this, and I think it's excellent, an excellent idea and an excellent way to help a particular group of people. But my question would be, how, for that particular role, a lot of the men feel like they have to have it all together. Because what they see, like they see the pastors, other pastors that have made it, they make it look like it's so easy and that they have it all together. So how can they be vulnerable enough to somebody like you saying, I need help?
I think that is a major issue, being vulnerable enough to say I need help, to say there's maybe something I can still learn. One of the things that you and I heard in college that has stuck with me for such a long time, William McCain always told us we needed to be fat Christians. We need to be faithful, available, and teachable.
Gotcha.
And I think sometimes after you've been in ministry 10 years, 20 years, even for me, 29 years, I still have to have that kind of availability and be teachable and not just assume I know everything. The only way to really break through those barriers is to continue to build relationships with those pastors, to build relationships and talk with them, be an encourager for them, invite them to opportunities, never stop inviting them, even if they don't come. Invite them to opportunities to learn something new, see something new. You just have to stay in the relationship.
Right.
I mean, to win the right to be heard.
To be heard.
Yeah.
And the right to be able to speak into their life, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So I get it. I mean, that group of people, let me say it this way. I love the fact that there's people out there that have taken the calling of God seriously enough to stand in front of people and preach the gospel. I believe that's a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
Right. I also know that there's a particular group of people that have certain characteristics that generally go that direction.
True.
All right. So there's, to be general, all right, there are things that they're good at. A lot of times they're good orators. They're good speakers, okay? They may be good in some type of leadership role, but administration is, in a general sense, not where they shine.
I agree with you completely. I believe every pastor needs to take some type of business course, at least take some management courses, take some leadership courses, do something to help them with the administrative role that they have. But I think part of the problem with these particular pastors who have a particular spin on what they're doing as a pastor, unfortunately, it's learned behavior.
Right.
It is what they have seen other pastors do. You know, it's the mimicry. You're not really learning the substance of how to make these things work. You're just mimicking what you see the successful guy doing.
Right.
And so you want to sound like that person. You want to behave like that person. You want to lead like that person, but you don't know how that person got there. And
Right.
you don't know what their journey was. And you don't know the people that they've developed and brought along the way.
And administration and organization is most of the time is not what they're showing. It's behind the wall.
Right. And that's the majority of the work for pastors. I will tell you.
Hold on now, let's say that really, really slow. Because an hour or two on Sunday morning is just a part of being a pastor. That's the preacher part of the pastoral job. The pastoral job, a lot of that happens. Sometimes you can shake hands and talk to people and pray for people on Sunday, but it's going to be Monday through Saturday where you really get to pastor the people.
It is. When you think about Jesus, the way I try to help pastors to understand it is that Jesus, we know him in scripture to be prophet, priest, and king.
Right.
Well, the prophet part, the preaching part, I mean, you get 30 minutes with people for that.
Right.
In today's world, 30 minutes.
In today's world, right.
So you get 30 minutes, and unfortunately, if they don't come to church every Sunday, I mean, even if you spend an hour every Sunday, you're only spending 52 hours with people on Sunday morning at the end of the year.
And we're not asking people to do 52 hours because if you think about it, that's a lot for one man to take on. So I always tell people that preachers need not to do 52 weeks on a Sunday. In a year.
Needs to get a break or two or three.
Right.
Yes. But just looking at church time, that's only 52 hours.
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to see the church functioning well, you have to take on those other two roles. So you got the prophet part, right? Mm-hmm. You're getting up, you're preaching, you're dynamic, and people are responding, but there's the priestly part.
Right.
People get sick. People are in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
People need counseling. People need help with, how do I handle, raising my children, or what resources are available in the community? So how can you help the elderly in your church? You have to
couples in your church.
Couples in your church. You have to minister to the people. That's the priestly part, and that takes hours of work. Then prophet, priest, and king. The administrative part.
Right.
And that's what keeps the church going. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do it well, you'll just be in survival mode. And I find a lot of small churches are in survival mode. They're just keeping the lights on, or they are managing their church like they would manage a personal checkbook instead of looking at the bigger picture of what they should be doing as an organization financially, how to invest in ministry. Mm-hmm. So most of the work, even since I've gotten to Lilly, and it's been less than a year. I mean, you were there at the installation in January. It's been less than a year. Most of my work has been behind the scenes.
Wow.
Most of it. I would say a good 80% of my work has been behind the scenes.
So do you know one of the ways that I can get you off track with what you're trying to do is to frustrate you to where you're distracted with frustration and not doing the work. And what happens is Satan tries to distract us from an administrative part and get you frustrated because you can't cross all of the T's and dot all of the I's, and the decimals just don't look like they're in the right place.
Right.
And you can get frustrated, and that takes you off of ministry
It does.
When sometimes you got to do all that you can and then allow God to give a blessing to the administration so that you're not frustrated. Because what happens is, and people do it at every level. It can happen when people get new buildings. Guess what? We got to preach tithing, we got to preach giving, and they can go overboard with that. But the same thing can happen with a small church just trying to keep the lights on.
It can. In business, they use a tool called the balance scorecard. And if you get any one of those areas of the balance scorecard out of whack, your business is going to suffer.
Right.
So if you're just focusing on finances, you're probably going to end up failing anyway.
Right.
If you're just focusing on my business processes, but you don't get the finances part right, you're going to fail anyway.
Right.
Because your competitors are going to have a better process. If you're just focusing on innovation, but you're not doing those other two, you're going to fail.
Right.
You know, so you have to make sure that things are in balance, but the frustrations that pastors a lot of times are dealing with come from above them, depending on what association they're a part of or what denomination they're a part of. And it comes from below them with the people.
Right.
And I say that because, you know, not to take a text, but in Hebrews chapter 13 says, you know, take care of these guys that are watching for your souls, because if you're giving them a hard time, it's not profitable for you. So if people in the church are carrying on a certain way and you get distracted by people being upset or people not understanding and not willing to talk it out with you, you spend more time trying to put out fires.
Right.
And instead of putting out fires, you should be slaying the dragon.
Right.
But your
attention is now somewhere else.
Yeah, it's split. So it's dangerous. Frustration is dangerous.
That's right. That's where burnout comes. That's where, God, did you really call me to this comes. You know, I could go sell some cars come, you know, anything but being a preacher.
Hey, another church. I'm going to go to another church because obviously these people don't want to go forward. So now I'm looking for somewhere else to serve. Right. Because I'm trying to find a place that's comfortable for me. That it comes from that too.
Man, that's something.
It comes from that. And I heard the stories during the pandemic of pastors that had to leave their churches and start, you know, truck driving.
Wow.
Pastors that just decided, I'm just going to uproot my family and move someplace else and do something different. Wow. So
that's something, man.
It has happened a lot.
And to have made that your calling and then have to step back, you know, you want to be more thoughtful. Now, again, you know, just because somebody says, and I don't want to say this in a very derogatory way, but sometimes people don't hear from God. And the frustrations of, there's something TD said, if I really didn't like you and I wanted to kill you, I would give you my church. Who could sit in his seat with all the stuff that he's got going on? Like, you got to be called
all of that responsibility.
Yeah, that's a ton of responsibility, and it's a ton of persecution that if you're not ready for, it will kill you.
But the same thing is true in a small church.
The same thing is true.
And I say that because in a small church, you have the same level of responsibility. You still have to answer to God for the souls that you're in charge of.
That's true.
And so if you're not the kind of person who takes it seriously, you can easily just decide, I want to move from place to place. I'm looking for my best opportunity and not realize the gravity of the souls that you're dealing with. When the pandemic happened, my mother passed. And when she passed away,
I remember that.
We moved back here to be closer to family. Well, I contracted COVID. When I got COVID, went through my 2 weeks like everybody else, but I have some long COVID symptoms, the fatigue and all these other things. And it made it difficult for me to go back and forth to Tuskegee. Okay. I spent months, almost a year, just praying, God, what do you want me to do? Right. You know, what am I allowed to do? Is it okay for me to be somewhere else? I don't want to leave. I've been at this church half my life. I've been there 25 years. I've built relationships. They're like family. I was like Gideon, Lord, let me just put this fleece out here. And if it's dry in the morning and the ground is wet, okay, Lord, let me put it back out here again.
Right.
You know, if it's wet and the ground is dry.
Right.
But I was constantly praying and seeking God. And it was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make in my life, to say to our church, I'm going to have to step down, because what was happening, I would have to do nothing at all on Saturday so that I could go down there and do ministry, come back home, and I was no good Monday and half of Tuesday.
Wow.
Because of the fatigue, the mental and the physical fatigue. It was beginning to be too much for me to bear.
Wow.
But I didn't want to stop because I hadn't heard from God to say it was okay for me to leave.
Right.
That's my assignment, you
Right.
know? Once I knew, it was, like I said, it was the hardest decision to say to them, hey, give me 6 months. And then to say, if the 6 months comes and I still haven't found a place to serve, I'm still stepping down.
Wow.
And so when the 6 months was up, it was Easter Sunday a year ago. And I stepped down. That was my last Sunday at Greater Friendship. And I had no new church to go to.
Wow.
You know, I was just, God, show me where you want me to be. I don't, to circle back, I don't think, like you said, everybody goes through that process. I think, no, they didn't get sent to where they're going. They just saw an opportunity.
Gotcha.
And then they sprinkle a little God on, oh, the Lord did this for me.
I understand.
But you can't really say that to people to their face.
You can't say it to their face. We can say it to each other, though. I do have a pet peeve, man. I have a real pet peeve, man. I say this all the time, and I know I'm going to make people mad. But when somebody tell me God said, I'm like, you lying. That's me personally. I'm not talking about anybody personally, but, you know, a lot of times people use that card to be able to do what they want to do, and they are then responsible for the outcome.
Well, that's because some people have Jesus as a savior, but not as a Lord.
Right.
You know?
Right, that's true.
So he's not in charge. He's just there to save you, to bail you out, but he's not the one that's in charge.
That being said, at the same time, I appreciate your willingness to help some of your peers and to be a mouthpiece for God, to be able to show some processes, some procedures that's actually going to be able to help. I know that you have some booklets that talk about preaching and stuff. I want to share this one fact. It is not new technology, and my glasses are talking to me. It's not new technology or a new idea to have a book of sermons.
True.
One of the first sermon books was actually written for the style, I want to say it was the 50s. And it was written in a style that the words would rhyme.
Yes.
And it does not get credit for that writing in that style, to me, that it should, because that was a form of rapping that actually went into, so rapping has been around longer than 50 years.
It has.
But it doesn't get the credit for it, because just like a lot of things, the music that came out of the church went into R&B and all of that.
Yep.
Well, that style of rhyming, written poetry to rhyme,
Yep.
actually came out of these sermon books and how people, that style of preaching.
Well, and I would say it wasn't always literally rhyming words. Sometimes it was rhyming concepts or rhyming thoughts. And so typically when you're crafting a sermon and you're crafting your sermon points, we're typically talking about make it memorable, something that people can easily remember.
Gotcha.
You know, so I might say, you know, if I'm preaching about prayer, let's talk about the purpose of prayer. Okay, that's good. The second point is going to have some alliteration with it. Let's talk about the presence of prayer. Let's talk about the posture of prayer. Let's talk about the power of prayer. And those may be my sermon points.
Right.
And that way, it's things that people are more likely to remember.
Right.
Which is important, because if all people are doing is listening to you, they're only going to remember 10% of what you said. So in a 30-minute sermon, people aren't going to remember 3 minutes.
Right.
That's painful. After you've labored 10 hours to make a sermon and people are only going to remember 3 minutes out of a 30-minute sermon.
You got to make it memorable.
You got to make it sticky. You got to make it memorable.
That's
So a lot of that alliteration and using those words and rhyming words, I try to see if I can do that with a lot of sermons. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't.
That's what's up.
But it's definitely a necessary tool.
I love it. I love it, man. So you done a couple of books. So I called you pastor. I should have said pastor, author, pastor. You know, let's talk about some of these books that you have.
Okay, so the first book, being in Tuskegee and dealing with a lot of rural pastors, I recognized that many of them bivocational. Some of them lived outside of the areas where they were. I was one of them because I was living in Auburn and driving to Tuskegee. Then I was living in Noonan, Georgia and driving to Tuskegee. But I knew pastors that were coming from Montgomery and other places to come to Tuskegee to pastor. So your time is limited. And I noticed that a lot of them were doing one-off sermons. I just got a good idea this week. I preach, and then when Monday comes, the clock is ticking. I got to figure out, I got to come up with something else. So I had started preaching sermon series, and I developed a method for how I would be able to break down a passage into a series. And so I wrote it. I wrote it in a book. And hold on, let's see. Because Strick let me bring my book.
Yeah, man.
So this is Sermon Series Preaching, a guide to developing sermons that connect. And in this book, I literally talk about how to develop specific types of series.
Okay.
So if there's a strategic series, it's around a strategic time of year. Let's develop a series to help you capture people's hearts and minds during that time of year. Maybe it's a story series. It's a great story in the Bible, and you don't just get to the punchline, the good part. Let's tell the whole story, but
walk
put it
through
in episodes. Yeah. Or maybe it's a character series. Let's look at a person's life in the Bible and see how that person progressed. For example, if I was doing a character series on Joshua, I would start at the beginning.
Right.
The first time you see Joshua is when Moses is up on the side of a hill and Aaron and Hur are holding his arms up. Moses just made Joshua general. So this man who's a 4th generation slave is now a general fighting in a battle by himself with all of his army. Never done this before.
Right.
And whether he wins or loses, whether or not somebody holds Moses' arms up, you know? And at the end of that story, God tells Moses, write this down and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua.
Wow.
So Joshua goes from there to being, the next episode, he's now Moses' servant. He goes up on the mountain with Moses and he's watching Moses, the 10 Commandments and all of that. He comes back down, he's still the general of the army, but eventually he's the one, he grows as a leader, that he's the one who leads the children of Israel into the promised land and helps settle the promised land. So his progression as a leader became the sermon series.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so a series of sermons just about Joshua and looking at those episodes in his life. Or if I'm going to do the book of Ruth, why just talk about the good part at the end? There are lessons in all 5 chapters. So that's a 5-week series, one sermon from each chapter, and it gives me the chance to tell the story.
I get it.
So that way, when you're working on a sermon, you're not always just working on that sermon. You're actually working on the entire series, because things will come up and it's like, oh, that's a great, or you see something on the news, oh, that's great, but that doesn't fit this week, that fits week 3.
Right.
But you're constantly compiling information so that when you're getting ready to finally put that sermon together on Wednesday or Thursday or whenever, you're more compiling one than writing one.
I get it.
And it saves the pastors time, which they don't have.
Right.
You know, if you're a pastor, husband, father, community leader, you know, help coach the local football team, whatever you're doing, you've got a lot going on.
Got a lot going on, yeah.
You got to be able to do something to help you with your sermons.
I like that. And this was actually the first book that you wrote, right?
Yes, this is the first book, Sermon Series Preaching. And I've had pastors who've read this and come back to me and said, because I read this book, preaching is a joy now.
Oh, man.
Because one guy was so excited. He was like, I know what I'm preaching 2 weeks from now.
Oh, that's a review. That's a great review.
So, being able to plan, and I talk in here about planning your preaching calendar.
So that's one of 3?
This is one of 3. So this was the first book, Sermon Series Preaching. The second, the members of our church at Greater Friendship said, you wrote a book for pastors, you didn't write one for us.
No way.
That's what they said. So I wrote this book, Grow, 7 Spiritual Practices to Grow Your Faith. And it's the basics of what it means to be a believer. So it's literally 7 practices. How do you study the Word of God?
And that's the book that I have.
Yes, you have this one. You have this one now as well.
Okay, well, that's what's up.
I come bearing gifts.
Okay, that's what's up.
So with Grow, how do you study the Word of God? How do you actually do it? How do you pray? How do you worship? How do you fast? How do you serve in a church? How do you share your faith? How do you fellowship? These 7 spiritual practices, if you're growing in these, you'll always continue to increase, and grow in your faith.
I like that.
So that's what this book is about.
Okay.
And we made this book, let's see, the pandemic, everything in the country shut down on a Friday. I clicked publish on a Thursday, on that Thursday. And my wife and I decided that we were going to make this book available to help churches. So I made this book available to pastors at my cost.
Wow.
So that they could get this book at $5 a book.
Wow.
And, it retails on Amazon for like $16.99. But I'm like, hey, you don't know what you're teaching and preaching during the pandemic. Your church is struggling financially. Get this book at $5 a book. If you make it available to your members for $15, you get $10 back to your church per book. Wow. So pastors.
So they would just have to buy, they can buy them in bulk from you and be able to.
Instead of buying them directly from Amazon, they bought them from me. And so I would have it shipped directly to them. And we wrote a teaching guide to go along with it. So I'll send them the PDF of the teaching guide.
Okay.
And the pastors that did this kind of fundraiser, I don't know a pastor that was able to teach this in less than 5 months. It took them that long to go through
it all.
But that's 5 months. They didn't have to worry about what they were going to teach for Bible study.
Well, there you go.
And it put some money back into their church. So that was the second book. Now, the third book just got published a week ago.
So this is hot off the press.
This is hot off the press. So I had pastors who were saying, I like this idea of doing sermon series, but I'm having trouble getting started.
Gotcha.
So I decided, well, I'll just give you some sermon outlines. So this book has 12 sermon series in it.
Okay.
They've already been preached before, but I put them in an outline format. It's kind of like giving a pastor the skeleton and letting him put the meat on the bones. But there's an overview for each series telling you what the series is about. And then after the overview, you actually have the outlines for each sermon in the series, whether it's a 4-part series, 5-part series, or 6-part series.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
And so it's a whole year of preaching in here. If a pastor needed help, if he just wanted to use them as a sermon starter, if he wanted to take one of these series and say, hey, I'm doing 5 nights of revival, let me grab one of these series out of here and I can preach those 5 nights.
So say I'm a singing pastor, you got anything for me in there?
Any one of these sermons would help singing pastor. Well, and I say that because, depending on how you approach what you're doing, you can always find a song or a hymn that goes with it. And I say, I don't do a whole lot of singing.
Do you sing at the church, man, for real?
I don't really do a lot of singing.
Oh,
I try to stay out of that arena if I can.
Let your wife do it. She can handle it.
Yeah, she can handle it. So, but I'll give you an example. Sunday, I was preaching a message, and the final point in the sermon is that you need to anchor your faith. I did not sing it, but I quoted the lyrics.
Okay, good. Good for you, good for the people.
I quoted the lyrics for, be sure your anchor holds to the solid rock.
There you go.
I took that hymn and, times like these, you need a savior. Times like these, you need an anchor. That anchor is Jesus. I did not sing it. I did not sing it.
What's up, man? So people are hearing us today, and I know because of time, I want to go ahead and wrap it up, but how can, whether they're lay people in the church or pastors that want more information about what you're doing, how can they get in contact with you?
Easiest way is through my website. So I have a personal website. It's pastordjmanuel.com. And there on the website, you'll find where the phone number is there for you to subscribe to Prayers for Pastors.
Okay.
There's information about the books there and information on how to get in touch with me if you need me to come in and do some coaching with you. So all of that's on my personal website. Now, our church website, lillybaptistchurch.com. But for me personally, pastordjmanuel.com.
Wow, well, you can't beat that, man. I appreciate you coming by. My hope is someone listens to this today and they will be vulnerable enough to say, hey, I need a little help.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot to share this with you.
Okay.
I'm doing a workshop this week, and the workshop is called Jumpstart Your Preaching Calendar. And we're inviting ministers and pastors to come learn about preaching, learn how to develop your annual vision, and learn how to actually make your preaching calendar for the year.
Okay.
And I'll be doing that several times during the fall as we get closer to the end of the year. But this is a great time to get started with that. So that's going to be, this first one is going to be on Saturday the 20th from 9 a.m. to 10:30. It'll be at Lilly Baptist Church, or they can register and they'll be able to watch it on Zoom.
So I'm not really sure when we're going to air this. That being said, if they want more details about the sermon series or about the series that you're going to have on this, how can they get more details on that?
We'll always put that information on pastordjmanuel.com. So when I'm doing the next workshop, it'll be there. Gotcha. So that's where we post all of our information. And on social media, I'm literally on all the channels as Pastor DJ Manuel.
Well, there you have it. Hey, man, this has just been awesome, dude.
Yeah, it has.
You're the man, and I appreciate you and the heart that you have for other leaders in this city.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be home.
Yeah.
And glad to have something to contribute.
There you go. There you go. Hey, man, this has been another Strick City Live. Thank you so very much for how you guys have already supported us. But of course, we can always use more of your help. And it's not monetary help that I need. Can you like this? Can you share it? Can you subscribe to the channel? That will go a long way for us reaching more people. So till next time, I'll see you. Strick City Live.
Yo.